Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third video in this series on virtual convening facilitation. My name is Avery Kent, and I'm the co-founder and chief innovation officer of conveners.org.
And I'm still Michael Cass, the founder of Story and Spirit.
If you're watching these back to back, you might notice a trend. So with that, we are excited to take you through the content for our third video, which is focused on engagement and interaction. Okay, so distractions. Now, I think it's a myth that in-person people aren't also grappling with distractions. I can't tell you how many plenaries I've been in where everybody's actually on their phone dealing with their email and like sort of vaguely listening to whatever the panel is. But online, this can be really amplified. Folks are, answering their emails, etc. There's a new layer of distraction in the COVID-19 era of, I'm home with kids. I've got a crazy dog. I've got 20 other things that are happening behind me. And so I think categorizing those distractions becomes really important, of both asking people to be really present to the experience, so not checking email or phone calls unless urgent, and at the same time naming and acknowledging, hey, if your kid needs you, we respect that. Take care of your life. Like, that personal professional boundary is going to just continue to be a little more blurred in this age.
Yeah. And the only thing I would add to that is that really gives people permission to stay present by naming the various ways that they might not be present. They're actually much more likely to stay engaged throughout, right? So the in-person analog to that would be, hey, if you feel like you need to stretch or get up or go to the restroom, do it. We're all adults here. Take care of yourself first. And mentioning that at the beginning can be so helpful.
So our second topic is on successful small groups. So similar to what we just talked about in the previous video, depending on how many small groups you have or your resources, it can be really helpful to have somebody who is actually deputized to be running that small group or to be facilitating that. And depending on the purpose of your small group, you may actually need folks to step into different roles. So if it's an activity just like trio storytelling, you don't really need individual facilitators or roles. But if it's essentially a small working group, you may need to have somebody who is going to be facilitating, somebody who's going to be taking notes, and somebody who's going to be responsible for essentially summarizing what happened for the group back to the main room.
Yeah, the only thing I'd add to that one is online, the specific intent of a small group wants to be really thought out. So it never wants to be, hey, we're going to split you into groups of 5 and you're going to talk about this for 6 minutes and then you're going to come back, or you're going to talk about this for 15 minutes. Won't work as well. So really making sure you have specific questions or specific activities and guidelines so that people know exactly what the
one other piece I would add is that timing for small groups is very different. So in a, half day or day long convening, you may be very accustomed to having like a 45-minute breakout room where folks are going deep. You really can't do that well online. At least not unless you're using like a totally different structure like Hopin, where it really is a day-long convening. So for successful small groups, we do recommend about 20 minutes as kind of the upper threshold of how long folks are going to be able to do that. And part of that is you also just start creating very parallel or different tracks for folks where, the more time people are spending, the more divergent your small groups are getting from each other, and the much harder it is to do any kind of sense making or drawing people back together at the end.
Yeah, and sometimes you want that divergence because sometimes it's really great to see, oh, wow, you were considering the exact same criteria and data and you went in wildly different directions. Isn't that interesting? And then come together that way.
I would totally agree with that. And I would say the implication of that on your agenda is that you then need to really invest in the sense-making time on the back end.
Right, absolutely.
Because and this is, I've seen this true with just facilitation across the board. We love the brainstorming and the divergence. And so like, we'll do all this time and like, what's the possibilities and what's out there? And then we almost always shortchange the sense making into some like really messed up format like report outs that don't really do anything. And so making sure that if you are going to invest in that divergence, that you have time for people to really cross-pollinate. One technique is actually cross-pollinated small groups. So you could actually re-randomize it so that people from both groups end up in logic. I don't know how to frame this.
Different groups, and they start talking to each other and
A
sharing
and
the
B,
ideas that
then
way.
get crossed together, become C and D, and they can each kind of share with each other what their experience was in the first group. That's another way.
I think core to that is that idea is if you're going to encourage that kind of divergent exploration, then that has to be a central design feature of your entire gathering, as opposed to, oh, isn't this fun? Anyway, moving on, really honoring that divergence.
Great. The third piece is the power of thinking time. So, this is something we do all the time in in-person facilitation and experience design, where we give people space to process, and we give introverts a chance to like get their thoughts in order. And it is not something that we're really accustomed to doing in a virtual environment. So as you experienced in the last call, giving people a minute, 3 minutes to think about what they are going to say or what you want them to focus on can be really powerful. I have yet to do this virtually, but I'm like itching to. One of my favorite techniques is the free writing exercise, where you actually have people go off and like write for 10 minutes. I'll let you know how that goes when I actually get to try it with a group. How about you, Michael? What's your favorite?
I've done that. I love the free writing, and I've done it with a group, and it works so well. So I'll actually direct them for certain kinds of groups. I do a lot of story work. I'm like, is there a place in nature nearby? Is there a place where you can sit in the sun? Go there. Here's the question for you to consider. Free write on it, and come back, and we'll process together. And it can be incredibly powerful, even for strategy sessions, because people just kind of access a different level of intelligence, and they're always surprised by how much commonality there is in what came out during that free writing exercise.
Beautiful. So, which baby animal's next? I don't actually know what this is. Some sort of fox, possibly photoshopped, but it's adorable.
Look at those eyes.
Look
it's
at this,
amazing.
like, yeah, there's like no way that's not photoshopped. But anyway, it's super cute. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.